rain had finally stopped, and the golden morning sun stretched across the empty streets as Rowan Mercer finished his overnight delivery route. He was exhausted, his eyes heavy after another sleepless night, when he noticed an expensive black luxury car sitting crooked beside the road with its hazard lights blinking. At first, he thought someone had simply abandoned it, but as he walked closer, he saw a woman in an elegant cream-colored dress slumped against the driver's door, barely conscious, her makeup smeared by tears rather than alcohol alone. In that single moment, Rowan had no idea that helping a complete stranger would reopen a chapter of his life he had buried years ago, a chapter connected to the wife he had loved, the family he had lost, and a mother who believed he had disappeared forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel, Soulful Tales 2. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories to life. Rowan Mercer had spent the last 7 years raising his 8-year-old son, Noah, alone. Every sunrise reminded him of Amelia, the gentle woman who had filled their tiny home with laughter before cancer stole her away, just months after Noah was born. Since then, Rowan's world had become painfully simple. Wake up before dawn, work every shift nobody else wanted, deliver packages, cook dinner, read bedtime stories, repeat. There were no vacations, no celebrations, and certainly no room for new relationships. Every extra dollar went toward Noah's school, groceries, and the small mortgage on their modest cottage overlooking quiet farmland. Rowan had learned that grief never truly disappeared. It simply became another passenger riding silently beside him every day. The woman beside the luxury car looked nothing like the people Rowan normally met. Her designer heels were tossed several feet away. Her expensive purse lay open on the pavement. She looked successful, powerful, and completely broken at the same time. She tried to stand, but nearly collapsed again. Rowan gently caught her before she hit the ground. The strong scent on her breath wasn't just alcohol. It carried the bitterness of someone trying desperately to forget something impossible to erase. She whispered only one address before slipping back into silence. Rowan searched her purse only long enough to find an identification card. Her name was Victoria Ellsworth, Chief Executive Officer of Ellsworth Biotech, one of the country's fastest-growing medical companies. Newspapers often praised her as a brilliant young entrepreneur who had transformed her late father's struggling business into an international success before turning 35. Yet the woman resting against his shoulder looked nothing like the confident executive shown on magazine covers. Calling a taxi felt unsafe. Calling the police seemed unnecessary. Rowan decided to drive her home himself after arranging for roadside assistance to collect her vehicle. It seemed like the decent thing to do. The address led him nearly an hour away to an enormous stone estate overlooking the ocean. Tall gates slowly opened after security confirmed Victoria's identity through the intercom. Rowan expected housekeepers or assistants to greet them. Instead, an elderly woman opened the front door herself. The moment her eyes met Rowan's face, time stopped. The color drained from her expression. Her trembling hand covered her mouth. Rowan felt his heartbeat disappear, because he recognized her too. Margaret Holloway, Amelia's mother. 7 years earlier, Margaret had blamed Rowan for allowing Amelia to refuse an experimental treatment. During Amelia's final weeks, grief had turned into anger. Harsh words were spoken. Relationships shattered. After the funeral, neither of them ever reached out again. Rowan believed Margaret hated him forever. Now she stood frozen inside her beautiful home, staring at the widower she hadn't seen since the day she buried her daughter. Neither of them noticed Victoria quietly sleeping against Rowan's shoulder. Margaret's eyes slowly shifted toward Victoria before returning to Rowan. Tears instantly formed. Without speaking, she stepped aside. Rowan carried Victoria inside. The luxurious mansion felt strangely empty despite its size. Family photographs lined every hallway. Most featured Victoria receiving business awards beside Margaret. But one picture hidden on a side table made Rowan stop breathing. Amelia, smiling exactly as he remembered, holding a much younger Victoria. The sisters looked almost identical. Only then did Rowan realize the truth. After Amelia's death, Margaret had eventually remarried, Victoria had become her stepdaughter years earlier after Margaret's second husband entered her life. Amelia and Victoria had shared only a short time together before tragedy separated them. Victoria had unknowingly spent years admiring the memory of a stepsister she barely remembered. Margaret quietly explained while helping settle Victoria into bed. Victoria's father had passed away only months earlier. Since inheriting the company, she had buried herself in endless work. That morning marked what would have been his birthday. She attended a business celebration pretending everything was fine before driving away overwhelmed by grief. She had never been someone who drank heavily. Pain had simply defeated her for one terrible night. Rowan listened silently. Loss recognized loss. Before leaving, Margaret finally asked about Noah. That single question broke years of silence. Rowan showed her a recent photograph. A smiling little boy with bright, curious eyes and Amelia's unmistakable smile. Margaret burst into tears. She admitted she had watched Noah grow only through old social media pictures before. Rowan deleted every account to escape painful memories. Pride had kept her away. Regret had followed every birthday she missed. Rowan carried bitterness for many years. Yet standing inside that quiet room, none of it seemed important anymore, because grief had punished both of them enough. Margaret asked if she could meet Noah someday. Rowan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he simply nodded. Days later, Rowan believed that strange mourning had ended forever. Then his phone rang. Victoria requested a meeting. She apologized sincerely for everything Rowan had experienced because of her reckless decision to drive while emotionally overwhelmed. She thanked him for protecting both her safety and her dignity, instead of chasing publicity like so many others might have. During lunch, she learned about Rowan's life. The endless overtime, the constant sacrifices, the dream he once abandoned of becoming an architect after Amelia became ill. Victoria listened more than she spoke. She noticed the calluses on his hands, the worn work boots, and the quiet exhaustion hidden behind every polite smile. She also noticed something else. Hope. It hadn't disappeared. It had simply been waiting. Weeks turned into months. Victoria occasionally visited Rowan's small town under the excuse of inspecting one of the company's research facilities nearby. Sometimes she brought books for Noah. Other times she simply joined them for lunch beneath the large oak tree outside their cottage. Noah adored her almost immediately, not because she bought expensive gifts, because she actually listened. She helped him build model airplanes, laughed at his impossible questions, and celebrated every tiny achievement as though it were the greatest accomplishment in the world. Meanwhile, Margaret slowly rebuilt the relationship she thought she had lost forever. The first visit was painfully awkward. The second became easier. By Christmas, she was baking Amelia's favorite cinnamon bread in Rowan's kitchen while Noah proudly sprinkled too much sugar across every loaf. The house that had once echoed with silence slowly filled with laughter again. One afternoon, Victoria confessed something she had never admitted publicly. Her success had come at an enormous personal cost. Investors admired her. Employees respected her. The media celebrated her. Yet every evening she returned to an empty mansion where achievements felt strangely meaningless. Watching Rowan and Noah reminded her that wealth could build houses, but only love created homes. Months later, Ellsworth Biotech announced a nationwide scholarship honoring caregivers who sacrificed careers to support seriously ill family members. The program carried Amelia Holloway Mercer's name. Rowan had no idea Victoria planned it. Hundreds of families received educational support during its first year. Thousands eventually benefited. One act of kindness had quietly multiplied into countless second chances. Years passed. Noah grew into a confident teenager. Margaret became the grandmother she always wished she had been. Victoria remained a constant part of their lives, never trying to replace Amelia's memory but honoring it every single day. One peaceful afternoon, Rowan stood beside Amelia's grave with Margaret, Victoria, and Noah. Fresh white lilies rested beneath the headstone. Nobody cried. They smiled, because grief had finally made room for gratitude. Rowan realized something beautiful. Helping that broken stranger beside the road had never been about rescuing a wealthy CEO. It had been about rescuing pieces of a family that had quietly waited years to find one another again. Sometimes life doesn't give us second chances by repeating the past. Sometimes it sends strangers carrying the missing pieces of tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in forgiveness. Leave a heartfelt comment and subscribe to Soulful. Tales 2. Your support allows these stories of hope to reach more hearts around the world. Special request. Before this story ends, please write, "Kindness always finds its way home," in the comments to honor every loved one whose memory continues to guide us. As the evening sunlight painted the countryside in warm golden colors, Rowan watched. Noah laughed with Margaret while Victoria helped prepare a simple family picnic. Amelia was no longer physically there, yet her love lived on in every smile, every act of forgiveness, and every heart that had chosen compassion over resentment. Rowan finally understood that the greatest miracles rarely arrive with loud celebrations. They arrive quietly, disguised as ordinary moments, asking only one simple question. Will you choose kindness when you have every reason to walk away? And because one exhausted single father answered that question with compassion on an ordinary morning, an entire family discovered that even the deepest wounds can heal. When hearts are willing to forgive, remember, and love again,